Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Malloy. I'm the community organizer for Pittsburghers For Public Transit. PPT and the outside. So yeah, I'm the community organizer for Pittsburghers For Public Transit. I'm here to welcome you on and thank you for joining us on National Transit Equity Day, which of course is also Rosa Parks' birthday. We are all here today to celebrate the life and legacy of Rosa Parks by launching our Fair platform. A lot of work went into this from a lot of organizations, a lot of dope organizations and individual riders. And I wanted to thank everyone for coming out again. PPT could not do anything that we do without the people that we work with, and I think that's super dope. Back to my scripted remarks. Ms. Parks recognized that transit is not just a luxury afforded to the rich. She, like PPT and all who are gathered here, realize that freedom of movement is directly linked to public transit access and therefore is a human right and a civil right. So why now? Across the country, riders are rising up and calling for our cities and states to invest in transit like our lives depended on it. It's not an exaggeration to say that they do. Bus lines are lifelines, and fares are often the single biggest obstacle to access. That's why last month, Kansas City became the largest city in the U.S. to implement free fares, and why Worcester, Massachusetts is now considering it too. That's why riders in Chicago and New York City are leading the charge for low-income fare programs like they have in Minneapolis, Seattle, and San Francisco. Yeah. Woo! Black and brown lives depend on stopping armed police from doing transit and fare enforcement and depend on civil penalties rather than criminal penalties that lead to astronomical fines, jail times for a $2.50 violation. Right. We are standing in the shadow of the Wilkinsburg bus stop where the unarmed black man, Bruce Kelly Jr., was shot by Port Authority police. As transportation now tops the list of carbon emissions driving climate change, all of our lives depend on getting people onto buses and out of single occupancy vehicles, which is why we need Port Authority to have a regular fare incentive programs like bulk bus passes and regular free fare days to get people used to riding transit without having to navigate complicated fare system. This is our moment. Our coalition is launching our Fair Fares platform that is the accumulation of years of advocacy efforts by thousands of riders, canvassing, signing petitions, mailing postcards, rallying, testifying for fair equity, and decriminalization of fare enforcement. As Port Authority begins their neighborhood outreach meetings, we need their fare consultants to hear loud and clear that planning fare increases is unacceptable, that having fair equity and civilian fair enforcement policies and fair incentives are not only desirable, but necessary to creating the just, sustainable, and thriving region that we all deserve. We thank our coalition partners, Just Harvest, Casa San Jose, the Alliance for Police Accountability, the Thomas Merton Center, and our riders and transit operators for their leadership and commitment to crafting this powerful Fair Fares platform. Woo, 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 woo! We believe that we can win. 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 Fair fares now. Fair fares now. All right. Up next, we're going to hear from Just Harvest, Helen Gerhardt. Where you at, Helen?
Where are you? Helen Gerhardt.
All right.
Thank you for being here. Shout it out. Yeah. So, Just Harvest addresses hunger in Allegheny County at its root, economic injustice, by fighting for the rights and well-being of people who live in poverty because of completely unnecessary unfairness in our economic systems and government policies. Along with our partners here today, we assert that yes, transportation is a human right. Yeah! In this county, where 1 in 7 households are struggling to put food on the table. Public transit allows those without resources to live full lives as equal citizens. So their transit should be affordable and accessible. And it is not in Allegheny County, where we are tied with New York for highest fares in the country, especially in relation to the cost of living and the incomes of the riders. Every day, I work and organize with people who must take many bus trips in order to live. Port Authority's own data shows that over 67% of bus riders in Allegheny County make $35,000 or less each year. Shame. The Port Authority knows that right now, at least 1 in 10 riders must pay with cash, especially the thousands who live in areas without readily accessible vendors that sell Connect cards. So those riders have to pay the full fare every time they transfer buses. That's a full $275 for each transfer. Again, because of where they live, they must often take 2 or 3 or 4 buses to get to the doctor, the daycare, the grocery store, their jobs. So many of those riders, like personal care attendant Alondia Hurd, must travel to multiple locations across the county each day to take care of her patients, elderly, disabled, and chronically ill people who are also many times struggling. She is paid $10 an hour. Every transfer fee is a significant chunk out of her food budget. She often works 60 hours a week, and yet there are many weeks she cannot afford fresh fruits and vegetables. And Alondia is herself struggling with chronic asthma, yet she must often choose between her medical bills, medicines, rent, utilities, bus fare, or healthy food. Allegheny County knows from its own research by multiple departments and agencies that access to affordable, healthy food is critical to health, to life itself. They know, based on so many studies, that our county has some of the highest rates of diseases among low-income people that could be prevented by access to healthy food, including heart disease and infant mortality. They know, based on their own reports, that mothers must travel many extra miles by bus to get to the stores where they can use WIC to buy healthy food for their children. The babies and the toddlers that they often carry in their arms, along with those bags of milk, eggs, fruits, and veggies. Without the ability to pay for and maintain a car, low-income people absolutely need an equitable, affordable, and accessible public transit system to be able to access healthy food and the education, training, and living wage job opportunities that allow them to afford that food. Yes. So here's the practical changes that we are fighting for. The basic common sense measures that other bus systems around the country have adopted that would mean basic fairness. Free transfers. Yes. Fare capping. When a rider's fares equal the cost of a weekly or monthly bus pass, the charges should stop coming. Port Authority must ensure that there are vendors that sell Connect cards and recharge them all over the county, especially where they are needed the most. And a sliding scale for bus fares based on eligibility for other public support systems, such as food stamps. Port Authority asks, how will we pay for it? Fare box revenue is 25% of the Port Authority's budget. Alondia Hurd is one of those riders making less than $35,000 a year who are paying way more for transit than a commuter who makes $75,000. Shame. People like Alondia are paying the lion's share to sustain the transportation system that sustains the businesses and corporations that do not pay their fair share of taxes. Often those giants pay nothing into the transportation system that ensures their giant profits. When the Montgomery bus boycott began, that public transit system did not value the enormous portion of their ridership who worked hard every day, worked to take care of their families, to contribute to their communities, to put food on their tables, and the value of their hard work into the larger system that yet would not give them the most basic civil and human rights. When Rosa Parks refused to stand up and give up the bus seat she had paid for, she responded to that basic unfairness. Civil rights are supposed to protect people like Alondia, yet that basic, deadly unfairness continues here in this county. If we want to live up to our claim to be a human rights city, our elected officials and our public agency of the Port Authority must honor the civil and human rights of women like Alondia Hurd through real and purposeful action. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Helen. Kills it every time. We are excited to hear from some super dope progressive county council members. We have Bethany Hellam, Liv Bennett, and Anita here. Oh, hello.
Thank you. Power women. Yeah. Ready? Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today in support of our fight for an equitable transit system across Allegheny County and beyond. Yes. My name is Bethany Hallam, and I am your Allegheny County Councilperson at large. I, along with my colleagues, County Councilwoman Olivia Bennett and County Councilwoman Anita Pricio, are here today in support of the Fair Fares campaign. The lack of access to public transportation in our communities is something that has personally affected my life. Since my license was revoked almost a decade ago, I have experienced firsthand the challenges that come with relying on public transit in Allegheny County. Living only 10 minutes outside the city, yet not being near a bus line, has resulted in me having to rely on ride-share apps along with the graciousness of friends and family to get where I need to go, instead of being able to enjoy the independence of adult life. By making it difficult for folks to get to work, doctor's appointments, and even the grocery store, the basic human and civil rights of our residents are being denied as we stoke the flames of inequality in our society. People should not have to be fortunate enough to have a support system of others willing to transport them where they need to go in order to live a healthy life with access to opportunity. The cost of public transportation should not be structured so that a single person is cut off from access to services. We must ensure the most vulnerable populations of our communities have equal access as those with the most resources. Cash fares and the fares of those who have the privilege to use Connect cards should be equal. Fare capping needs to be introduced widespread and immediately, with the end goal being free public transportation for all of the residents of our community. A stronger, more resourced public transportation system is crucial to our broken society that focuses on cars and other personal vehicles instead of buses, bicycles, and pedestrian-friendly streets. It is our duty as elected officials to call out these injustices and to fight to make our public transportation system in Allegheny County more affordable, accessible, and equitable. And we, as a coalition of county council members, vow to do everything in our ability to ensure this for every resident of the county. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hey, how dope was that? Super incredible to have progressive people have your back in your campaigns and when you launch your platforms. So I think that's pretty cool. Up next, we have Brandy Fisher, who's the president and CEO of the Alliance for Police Accountability. Brandy is absolutely incredible and one of my organizing idols. I'm super happy she's here today to speak out on our Fair Fare platform. Brandy?
Oh, don't raise the bar, lower it, lower it. Good morning, everyone. People may think that an issue about transit will think about transit and wonder with the Alliance for Police Accountability why they care about it. Transit is a human right. And the Alliance for Police Accountability cares about human rights, not just our civil rights. We have a right to be human, and as human beings, the things that we need to live, thrive, and survive should be easily, readily, and freely accessible. Right now, there is clearly a global movement on fare equity, both for decriminalization and low-income or free fares. The countrywide protest with hundreds of thousands of people in Chile was sparked by a proposed transit fare increase. A countrywide protest was sparked by a transit fare increase. That's how important this matter is. Decriminalizing poverty. Decriminalizing poverty is a #1 issue, not just in our city, but in our county. We cannot continue to criminalize poor people. Our county jail is full of people who are poor. The reason why they are in jail, many of them, is simply because they are poor. Ensuring that Black and brown students are not subject to harassment and assault by Port Authority has been one of our priorities. When you look at fare enforcement and you look at the ridership of transit, there are many young people who ride our transit system. Many college students who use our transit system, and many people who are working service jobs. The working poor are the majority of people who use our transit system. When we are fighting to raise the minimum wage, and it's not possible, we have to find other ways to take care of our people who use our transit system. I'm sorry. Josh mentioned Bruce Kelly Jr., who was murdered here by Port Authority police. One of the things that we have been fighting for, when you look at fare enforcement or how the police enforce laws, period, they often use canines to do so. And one of the things that we have called for is a moratorium on the use of police dogs to attack people. They're majorly used when it comes to Black and brown communities. They have been used to enforce Port Authority rules at the T station with students. There have been tragic results. And so we stand here today with PPT asking that the canines are no longer used that way when it comes to enforcement. Resources should not be going to more policing measures, especially when there are so many other things on which we should be focused. When you look at why enforcement is an issue as well, when you're talking about Black and brown communities, when you're talking about our immigrant communities, you're looking at people who are getting on the transit. You're looking at a police force who looks nothing like the people who they are enforcing these rules on. And so part of our platform, we asked for a consent decree that states for every white male hired to Port Authority police force, there should be a woman of color, a man of color hired as well. There needs to be an internal review and plan for change around the racial demographics of internal police promotion and practices. And basically, at the end of the day, poor people are not people who do not work. They are not only people who do not work. We have elderly people who we need to take care about and think about. We have youth and children who we need to think about and care about. We have people who are not able-bodied that we need to think about and care about. And that is why this is about our humanity. That is why this is necessary. That is why this is not an issue of just money. It is an issue of economic justice. It is an issue of racial justice. And it's an issue of our human dignity. Thank you.
So dope, so dope. Up next, we have Veronica from Casa San Jose. Casa San Jose helped us lead the Don't Criminalize Transit Riders campaign, along with APA and the Thomas Merton Center. I'm very excited to have her with us today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Casa San Jose, we support and advocate for Latino communities on important social issues like this one, very important. We support Pittsburghers For Public Transit. The immigrant and refugee communities are directly impacted by the unfair pricing of the public transit system. the cost structure the privileged class to have access to personal transportation to drive to local store to effectively use public transfer connect cards. Sorry, I'm short. We still have power, right? Immigrants and refugees often live in communities that do not have access to stores in order to purchase a Connect card or have access to a personal automobile to drive to other locations to purchase the Connect cards. It is an overwhelming challenge to meet the financial burden of paying public transportation just to go and buy grocery, just to go to the store, just to go to the doctor, just to go to work every day. Low-income immigrants and refugees pay a disproportionately higher amount of money to use public transportation. I have a chart in here. Speak for yourself. You have the privileged and unprivileged. Privileged people are already privileged. They already have an automobile. They already have a good job. They already have high incomes, and they're still paying very low amounts compared to unprivileged individuals. Every day, you have to go to work. You have to take 2 buses, 3 buses to go to work. How much you pay for that? The charge speaks for itself. $2.75 one day, one way, $5.50 per day, $11 per day. A privileged person pays $7 a day. If you added that amount, a privileged person pay $141 for a month. The unprivileged, $220 for a month. A year, if you add it, the privileged pay $1,692 a year. The unprivileged, $2,604 a year. Why is this happening? Why? This is discrimination. This is robbery. They're robbing us. That cannot happen. And we have the power, the demand that they have to change. This is a broken law policy that they have to be changed. It should not be a crime for low-income individuals to get to work or buy groceries for their family when they may not have the money now to pay and use their Connect cards, right? Criminal enforcement of fair payments and intimidation is unjust and unfairly affects the underprivileged residents of our communities. Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have Brianne Moy, who is on our PPT steering committee. Also helped us craft the Fair Fares platform, as well as making a bunch of decisions for us, especially me, because I'm super indecisive. All right, Brianne Moy, come on up.
Hi, folks. Thank you for the nice, warm welcome. My name is Brianne Moy. And like Josh mentioned, I am on the steering committee, and I'm a member of Pittsburghers For Public Transit, also aligned with the PA Poor People's Campaign. And in my day job, I'm an environmental justice organizer with One Pennsylvania. And the organizing that I do, I cannot help but to see the interconnected nature of all the issues that we're organizing around, especially when you think about systemic poverty and racism and environmental justice here in our county. And this holds true for the struggles for transit equity as well. And transit equity is more about just accessing public transit. Transit bus lines are lifelines, as our shirts read. And so having good transit means access to healthy food. Having good transit means you need to be able to navigate these systems without being criminalized and targeted by armed police. And I'm here to assert that transit equity is inextricably bound up with questions of racial and environmental justice, especially when you consider the dynamics that are radically transforming our city and our county. And at the core of this transformation is gentrification. Gentrification is when our elected leaders give incentives to developers to build new luxury housing, driving up rents and housing costs here in the city, and pushing our residents out. Gentrification is fueling the displacement of working class and poor folks, and disproportionately black and brown folks from their homes in Garfield, East Liberty, Lawrenceville, North Side, so many neighborhoods in the city of Pittsburgh, and pushing them into the suburbs from McKees Rocks to McKeesport and more. And not only are our displaced residents separated from their families, friends, workplaces, churches, everything that makes a community, but these residents are also saddled with the increased costs to maintain access to their former homes. That means increased time spent riding public transit. We're pushing the areas where we don't have easy access to Connect Card vendors, which means that we're paying the higher costs for our fares. And then nearly every trip requires a transfer, which means, once again, there's a greater cost with living in these areas removed from the city center. And some of our people have been pushed into communities like Braddock, East Pittsburgh, and Clairton, where they now live next to facilities which are producing toxic air pollution, which brings in an additional cost to these residents, a cost to their health and safety. We're announcing our Fair Fares platform at a critical juncture here in the city of Pittsburgh, where the intersecting crises of inequitable transit, housing, and environmental injustice are coming to a head. And we're offering really simple solutions here with our Fair Fares platform. Connect Card and cash fares need to be the same. We are asking for free transfers, and then also implementation of fare capping. And as they work to restructure their fare system, the Allegheny County Port Authority must really center the platform that we're putting out, because this platform has been driven by and crafted by not just Pittsburghers for Public Transit, not just our members, but the community at large, our community of transit riders. And it's time that the Port Authority really delivers transit justice to our communities. Thank you.
What do we want? Fair fare. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Fair fare. When do we want it? Now.
Thank you so much. We believe that we can win.
We believe that we can win.
Said we believe that we can win.
We believe that we can win.
Said we believe that we can win.
We believe that we can win.
Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. This is an amazing opportunity for us to lift up the struggles that are happening not only nationally but around the world for equitable fares, for decriminalized fare enforcement, for fare incentives that shift the burden of paying for transit off of riders, because it shouldn't be on riders who are doing exactly the thing that our region needs them to do in order to have a sustainable, just, and economically viable region. And shifting it onto agencies, onto developers, onto businesses that should be paying their fair shares. So our platform does all those things. It's an amazing document crafted with hundreds of hours of thousands of riders' participation in petitioning and rallying and testifying at Port Authority. And the amazing thing is that it's encapsulated in this beautiful zine that was created by Christina Castillo. So much love for her. Look at these beautiful posters, the Transit for People, Not-for-Profit, Equity, Dignity, and the Freedom to Move. That was crafted by Christina Castillo, donating her time. We are so grateful for her beautiful art and to be able to communicate this message that talks about all the ways that we can achieve transit justice in our community. So it also lays out on the last page all of the upcoming Port Authority Port Authority outreach meetings that will be happening in communities around the county. This is our moment. If we want the fare consultant to consider anything other than fare increases, which is on the table, then we need to tell them that that is unacceptable and that we want something different. So this is the blueprint for that something different. And so we are asking folks to bring this with them, to tell their stories about why our proposals would be transformative to the Port Authority in these community meetings, so that when the fare consultant comes back, he will realize that, and of course it's a he will realize that what he has to come back with is something that actually achieves some measure of justice for the people that are taking transit and should be taking transit in the future. So thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for holding out the rain. And we believe that we can win. Thank you.